Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Daniel Nichanian, founder, editor-in-chief of Bolts Magazine on the primaries. Then Josh Jager, bargaining committee chair for UAW Local 2093 on strike in Michigan. Meanwhile, Trump, now bored of Iran negotiations, doesn't care that there aren't any. This as Netanyahu tells him to take a hike on a ceasefire with Lebanon. Primaries today in California, New Jersey, Iowa, Montana, New Mexico, South Dakota. Perhaps the biggest primary day of the year. Meanwhile, Trump forced to abandon his $1.8 billion slush fund. Trump regime dismantles ocean monitoring system to give us data on the warming of the seas, climate change.
We don't test for it, it's not happening.
Because why not? Exactly. D.C. Circuit Court finds the Pentagon ban of transgender people illegal, bars the military from kicking out current service members. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth blocks promotions of 9 naval officers who are all coincidentally black or female.
Again?
Yep, and listen, this is for the Navy.
It's such a coincidence.
Scott Pelley accuses Barry Weiss of murdering 60 Minutes. The CBS show, I should say. I imagine the 60 minutes that you have to sit through with Barry Weiss seems interminable. New stricter requirements on Medicaid eligibility by the Trump regime will raise the number of 5 million people losing their Medicaid to potentially 7 million people. Meanwhile, Trump names Bill Pulte. He was the one who illicitly combed through mortgages to accuse Fed Governor Lisa Cook of mortgage fraud, now is named to the Director of National Intelligence. Marco Rubio heads to the Senate today to face the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Perhaps his vice presidential ambitions hang in the balance. I'll be watching, Marco. All this and more on today's Majority Report. It is
Newsday Tuesday.
Says Emma Vigeland. And when she says it's Newsday Tuesday, you know it's Newsday Tuesday. Of course, we've got two guests on.
It's not really Newsday Tuesday, but it is Election Day. So everybody get out and vote. Everybody get out and vote.
Yes, if you are in one of those states, we're going to be talking to Daniel Nichanian about some of the more prominent races that will happen today. We'll have a full roundup tomorrow after the primaries. And then we'll be talking to Josh Jager. I mentioned yesterday that a GM supplier on strike, 1,000 people in Michigan from the UAW. We will talk about him. In the meantime, primaries, of course, have a particular resonance this year because there has been a decided resurgence of progressives, particularly coming back after the last primaries.
2018 was like when the Justice Democrats came in, that's when the squad unseated some of those older Democrats, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, but it's grown since then.
2020 expanded a little bit too. I think Cori Bush got added and Bowman. 2022, I think more or less stagnant. In 2024, it went a little backwards because of all that AIPAC money. But the AIPAC money has now become a massive liability in these primaries, really in the past 6 to 8 months. Every time DropSite breaks a story about how one candidate has been hiding their AIPAC money, the polls flip within weeks.
Yes.
It's nuts. And
I know that it's just New York City, but I think 2025, seeing Zohran Mamdani win meant a lot of people across the country saw that and said, what else is possible in my state?
100%. And in fact, we were saying like Mamdani's going to have a big influence. I mean, we knew this, right? I mean, this was a huge battle for the soul of the Democratic Party. That doesn't mean that Mamdani can win in Iowa, although maybe he could, but it doesn't mean that. But we were saying stuff like, you go from New York City, you go up to Maine, you go across the country, and more we are seeing this happen. You spoke the other day to a candidate in New Jersey who looks like he's going to
Adam Hamway. Oh, well, how dare you?
Suspicious, but
all right.
But we're seeing this across the board. We saw it with Mieja. We saw it with candidates. We're going to see it in Maine next week, I think. But there is massive pushback. We have heard from DeRosa, the Cuomo aide, who was on TV last week, saying, like, I wouldn't cry if Susan Collins was senator. Of course, she was one of the midwives of the IDC in this state. But the more and more, we are seeing the dead enders of the Democratic Party. And here is a clip from CNN where Biden's former press office chief of staff, Yemisi Egbawole, is carrying on this tradition, I guess. And I don't know if this is a function of the AIPAC dead enders or a different breed of dead enders, or if the Venn diagram of those two are very similar.
Yeah, cryptocurrency folks.
And but this is a last gasp in trying to derail progressives from running in these general elections.
But I think we have lost the plot on authenticity. I think Graham Plattner is cosplaying working class. He wears it like a Halloween costume, and that has been placed on him by the same people who have run a lot of progressive candidates across the nation. In this pursuit of getting to know the everyman, we keep picking these people who I think show the worst parts of society. If I am to believe that Graham Plattner can relate to everyday Americans, then that means I am to believe that everyday Americans are okay with Nazi tattoos because they get them accidentally when they're drunk, or because they served in the military. They have very regressive views on race and on gender. I just cannot accept the fact that to gain the working class, we have to dress up people who show the lowest of our values.
You're projecting. I mean, honestly, there's nothing about his platform there, and that's why he's resonating, not because he wears a flannel shirt. I mean, this is how she thinks about voters. No, his platform, the fact that he doesn't take AIPAC money, the fact that he's running on Medicare for all, the fact that he wants to tax billionaires. That's what's operational here, not the cut of his jib and the way his voice sounds. It helps, but it's such a cynical way to view voters, and it should not shock you that she's a Democratic consultant. I was looking this up before the show. She has her own consulting firm, and it's called Podium Strategies, and she is on air, and this should be a disclosure. If you're a Democratic consultant and you're talking about a campaign like Plattner or Abdul al-Sayed's, it should be said that your whole your pocketbook is under threat with campaigns like this. The success of campaigns that are reliant on canvassing and door knocking and in-person voter outreach is a direct threat to her pocketbook, because consultant firms, which Democratic consultants, they make their cash off commission on large-scale TV ad buys and digital media ad buys and these mailer campaigns that are not a part of the strategy of the more grassroots people power-funded campaigns. So she's financially incentivized to say this on air.
It's also fascinating. We'll get into this maybe later in the program a little bit, but the whole cosplaying working class person, there isn't a single person in the Senate who I think maybe there's like 3 or 4 who are not millionaires.
Right, exactly.
Like, he could be cosplaying just sort of like, a middle class person. like what the idea that he sold his Gucci suits to then like, I'm going down to get the flannel at the, I mean, come on. And, but we should also say this woman, and maybe it's not indicative, she attended Liberty University, which is the Jerry Falwell, like the, there are some people who argue that when Jimmy Carter was talking about pulling tax exempt status from universities that wouldn't integrate, that was the beginning of the sort of like anti-abortion movement, because that became much more palatable. So I don't know, maybe Yamisi has a better sense of what the average person wants coming from a fundamentalist university that only recently allowed black people to walk with white people at their college. But be that as it may, understand it's not just that Plattner had a tattoo. Other people also have problems, even if they have no tattoos. This is number 3.
It was baked. And now Republicans have a race in the Senate where, maybe the Democrats have a flawed candidate, but now the Republicans have a just as flawed, maybe more flawed candidate.
More money to spend, too.
Yeah.
They basically sacrificed Cornyn, who was a huge, prolific fundraiser, had a leadership position, for somebody who has legal issues, will come in and have to hit the ground running.
And why is James Tallarico flawed? I don't think he's flawed. He's not even vegan. If that was a flaw. Being vegan is not a flaw, by the way. But they're accusing him of being vegan. They don't have any real dirt on him. If they had some real dirt on him, they would accuse him of something worse than being vegan.
I'll give people.
And by the way, being
quite
vegan.
a few sound bites. I think you haven't been spending enough time watching campaign.
I think my grandma would say he's a little progressive on his ideology.
Ken Paxton is going to turn voters out, though. That's the bet that Trump is
Okay,
making.
hold on.
Grandma would say that sentence.
Your grandma might say he's a little progressive on his ideology. Now, on one hand, we don't want anybody with tattoos. On the other hand, we don't want anybody who's a little progressive on their ideology. So on one hand, she's concerned that ostensibly Graham Plattner is a Nazi because of his tattoo. But on the other hand, she has a problem with James Tallarico because he's like, want to protect trans kids and
he talks about billionaires.
I mean,
but
you understand
that,
the
though.
game here that is being played.
Yes.
Can I just make a quick note? This is a still from an interview where she's talking to the Fox News Sunday briefing folks about Afton Ben, the progressive in Tennessee, and how she was against country music.
Look, I mean, we are watching the white-knuckled grip of the Democratic consultant class out here in the last moments, realizing like, and what kind of Democratic consultant goes on? I mean, look, and here's the bottom line. Plattner's the nominee. And if you have a problem with that, then you're mad at Chuck Schumer and Janet Mills, who got into that race, scared every other candidate out. Every reporter in Maine will tell you this. There's a reason why there's a dozen people running for governor on the Democratic ticket. It's because all those people were going to run in the Senate race, or half of them. But Janet Mills scared everybody out because Chuck Schumer was going around bigfooting everybody. And the only person he couldn't scare out of the race was Plattner because Plattner was already in it. So if you're mad that Plattner's the only candidate, you're mad at Chuck Schumer, but then you got to get over yourself and realize you have a choice. Because in 1 week, Janet Mills is not going to increase her polling by 45% or whatever it is.
I only suspended my campaign. That's what she's saying. Please, maybe vote for me.
And so the bottom line is you either get on board or you start campaigning for Susan Collins.
Vote blue no matter who, bitch. Vote blue no matter who, bitch. Eat it. And also the Tallarico thing, it's betraying what I just said, because Tallarico isn't some like barn burning leftist.
Of course.
But it's the way he's campaigning. She would prefer a Colin Allred style campaign from last cycle where he sat on his ass and consultants like her got really rich because he didn't go across the state. The closest we've gotten to flipping that Senate seat was in 2018 with Beto O'Rourke, and he made some poor choices with like going all in on gun control and stuff like that, and it didn't work out. But what he did do that was successful, and you should read David Griscom's book, it goes into it right in the introduction, was that he traveled all across the state. And Tallarico is doing that, but with a better campaign message. So, like...
But this is just like, this is more of the same. Here is CNN panel, Mariana Sotomayor, the Washington Post reporter. There is a whole cadre of people who are afraid that they are losing grip on politics.
Yeah.
And, you know, they never thought they had control of the Republicans, or to the extent that they did, they gave up on that 10 years ago. But they thought that they had control on the Democrats. And make no mistake about it, we still have a big problem with if not the majority, certainly a huge chunk of the Democratic Party. But more and more, you can see where this is going. And largely, frankly, it was obvious years ago where it was going to go, because young people are far more engaged than when people my age were young. Good.
Michigan, a non-Schumer candidate comes forward, particularly Abdul El-Sayed, then we could potentially lose a state that we currently have the majority in. Mm-hmm. And that is a problem. Does that mean at the end of the day in November, if, let's say, the Senate gets so close to flipping, Democrats in particular, flipping the majority, but they lose it because of these more unconventional, authentic candidates? I have heard already that people are very worried of that potential outcome.
It's a challenge. Okay, now she's supposedly relating this, and it's not her personal opinion, whatnot. She's just relating what people are saying. But obviously, you know who she's hanging out with, right? I mean,
you know who owns her paper.
Exactly. And the idea of like unconventional, authentic. There's a lot of euphemisms being thrown around here.
Not a lawyer millionaire, basically. Yeah.
As my grandma would say, maybe a little too progressive, or
a little too authentic.
First of all, we should also tell you that that woman who went to Liberty University, undoubtedly, I'm sure, a member of Kufi, maybe not. Her grandma is not relevant. What's more relevant is maybe her niece, or her contemporaries. But this whole unconventional thing, like, you know, McMurrow was also not a Schumer pick. It's just that she's been rejected because her politics are sort of like neither fish nor fowl. She's trying to split the difference, and people are sick of it.
They want to know what you stand for. They don't want to hear all of this like bloviating about why you can't do something.
It is quite possible that that Plattner will lose. It's quite possible that Abdul El-Sayed will lose if he becomes the nominee. Just like it was possible for every other nominee who's gone against Susan Collins for the past, whatever it is, 30 years.
29 years, yeah.
Look, I don't care about Graham Plattner's marriage any more than I cared about Susan Collins' really interesting marital history.
The Republicans are just
There
upset.
was a lot of talk about her having an affair before she married her second husband.
Yes, well, she can't throw stones.
I can't
effectively
imagine that
anymore.
anybody in Washington, D.C. is having affairs.
I mean, give me a break, right? Him and his wife worked through it. That's all that matters. Who cares? Who cares? People want to know. That's the thing, is they can't get out of their own head about his individual characteristics as well, because they don't believe in anything. Like, people are sick of hearing about people's, the tattoo and their personal lives. Why he's resonating is because of what he stands for. I know that doesn't resonate with you, but that's the reality.
We'll have more to talk about this in the coming moments and days, probably. On this big primary day across 6 states. In a moment, we'll be talking to Daniel Nichanian about those very elections. But first, we've all had times when you're under a lot of stress. Maybe you start to eat like garbage. Maybe you don't take care of yourself. One of the things that keeps me grounded in times like this, which I would say has really been for the past, I don't know, at least a year and a half.
Coinciding with Trump getting elected?
Yeah, but yeah. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened around then that, but be that as it may, you can still maintain your nutrient goals in the way that I do, which is by taking a daily multivitamin from Ritual. I started taking Ritual a long time ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but I'd have this problem where I go to see my doctor. My doctor would say, you need more vitamin D. I would say definitely. I would buy a multivitamin. I would take it for the month, and then I would forget about it. And then I always had this problem. Ritual is on a subscription. It will send you on a monthly basis what you need. But the other thing I've come to really appreciate about Ritual is that it is easy on your stomach. So a lot of times I'd be like, I got to take my vitamin. Oh, I can't take it now. I got to eat something. Oh, by the time I eat something, I forget to take my vitamin. Ritual, you can just take it because it's easy on your stomach. And then the other thing that I've come to appreciate is that, like, you want to know where your vitamins are sourced, because some countries, I mean, probably even to some extent in this country, but these days, but you don't know where it's coming from. And there can be other stuff in those vitamins that you don't want. Ritual's Essential for Men is a science-backed multivitamin. It is got 10 key nutrients, including omega-3 DHA to support heart and brain health, and vitamin D3 to support normal muscle and immune function. Ritual's products are also vegan. They are GMO-free, and they are tested for heavy metals and common allergens. Like I said, they are designed to be gentle on the stomach. Instead of striving for perfect health, aim for supporting foundational health. Save 25% on your first month at ritual.com/majority. That's ritual.com/majority for 25% off your first month. Also, I have found I'm on a constant search for a wallet that I like. I don't want the big fat ones. I don't wear it in my back. I wear it in my front. Then I found ones that were lightweight and they just start to shred after like a couple of weeks. I don't want the leather because they're too heavy and bulky. And now I have found it. It's Father's Day, ladies and gentlemen, and this is it. This is my wallet. Look at this. This is my wallet. It is a Ridge wallet. I'm constantly amazed by it. It's a Ridge wallet. It also protects you from RFID stuff. You can also get
Protects you from your own son.
Exactly. Yes. He uses his flipper to try and get my credit card numbers. I was like, he's like, I don't know what's going on. I can't get it. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm sorry. It protects your credit cards. Also, you can get a little tracker and you can never lose the wallet. It holds, I don't know, something like 10 cards, maybe. I'm not sure exactly how many. Oh, 12 cards. I keep my license out here because I got to pull that out, but you keep your money in that little thing there too. It's a great wallet, hard case. Ridge wallets are made from aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. They have over 50 colors and styles to choose from. Ridge wallet's unique, slim, modern design holds up to 12 cards plus cash. I don't know who carries cash anymore. And like I say, it's got that RFID blocking thing. And it's got a tracker card you can also get. So if you lose it, and I got these things too. I don't know, I wouldn't call it a keychain. I don't know what they call it, but it holds my keys. Those are my keys. I got like 6, 8 keys in there.
Also, you can put it in your pocket and it doesn't stick you.
It doesn't stick you. It's much slimmer. You can also clip it onto your belt, but that's not my look. But these are great. Losing your wallet is worse, even if you know you walked in the door. Ridge tracker card is terrific for that. Ridge has free shipping, 99-day risk-free trial, lifetime warranty on all their products. This thing is awesome. For a limited time, Ridge is running their huge Father's Day sale where you can get up to 40% off their best gear. Just head to ridge.com/majority report. Don't miss out on one of the biggest discounts all year. Ridge.com/majority report for up to 40% off. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Support the show. Tell them that we sent you. I'm looking at that 40% off. I didn't realize they didn't have that before. Saul's been bugging me for one of these because now he's all excited that he can't steal my.
Try and crack it. It's
exactly.
a puzzle frame.
We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Quick break. We'll come back. Daniel Nichanian. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Real pleasure to welcome back to the program the founder and editor-in-chief of Bolts Magazine, Daniel Nichanian. Nobody does elections, particularly local elections, across the country in terms of coverage like you do, Daniel. Always a treat to have you here. Let's stay, you go down to like prosecutors and sheriff's level, which is hugely important, particularly in this era of ICE and whatnot. And I encourage people to head over to Bolts and check out what's on the ballot because you have just, it's an amazing resource. But let's start with some of the bigger sort of federal government races because there's a lot. This is like the biggest primary day and maybe the most like, controversial, or I should say contested primary day, maybe of the season.
Well, first of all, it's great to be back. It's been a while, always fun. So I take it you don't want me to start with the mayoral race in the suburbs of LA or San Diego that's happening today. We can go up and down the ballot at your leisure. But there's big races today. There's primaries in 6 states, including, we can start with the big one, the state of California, with a lot of stakes at the federal level, also a lot of stakes within the Democratic coalition always, because there's a lot of fights there between left candidates, more centrist candidates, because it's California, and a lot of the fights are within the Democratic Party. And the governor's race in California has been on everyone's mind since the beginning of the year. And I mean, I was going to say will be decided today, but probably not, given that California is slower to count. So maybe by the end of the week, we'll have an idea of who's going to move forward to general election. A reminder in California for local and federal and state elections, it's a top 2 system, unlike many places, which means that every candidate, regardless of party, is on the same ballot, and you can have 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans advance. And that's really shaped not just the governor's race, but all sorts of races, House races, the mayor's race in LA, all sorts of races. A lot of voters are strategically thinking about, how can I make sure my party isn't shut out of the general election? How can I make sure maybe the other party is shut out of the general election? And that sort of consideration, which is not a factor at all in a lot of the country, is driving a lot of the elections up and down the ballot in California today.
All right, well, let's get to California, but I want to start with 2 of the Senate races that are noteworthy. One is the Iowa Democratic nomination. You got Josh Turek, and Zach Walz in that. Zach Walls, some of the old timers like myself may remember when this guy was like a 19-year-old, and I think he was testifying in front of the Iowa State Senate about his two moms, and it was incredibly compelling. What's the big sort of difference between these two? Because their politics are not dramatically different.
Right. They're not dramatically different. The primary has probably gotten less attention than other. It is not a main Senate situation in terms of how much attention it's gotten. I think partly because people expect Republicans to have an edge in the fall. It's an open race. The Republican senator there is not running for re-election. It's an opportunity for Democrats to see if they can put Iowa back in play. Obviously, it was a blue-leaning state up until Trump. The two candidates running are not that different. One difference that they've fought over a bit. It's not issue number one, but when you try to see what the differences are, there was a bill in Iowa to criminalize reentry for immigrants. Illegal reentry may make it a criminal act that Republicans passed, and only a few Democrats who are sitting in the State House and State Senate voted for it, including Josh Turek voted for it, and Walz said it's against it. That's animated some of their disagreements. I think Walz generally has taken a more progressive lane in some ways, but we're not talking about a huge split there. The big fight there will be in November. I think again people expect Republicans to have an edge, but if it's a blue wave year, Iowa is certainly not out of the question for Democrats.
Ann Seltzer wasn't wrong. She was just right too early.
Well, and we shall see in a few months.
And Turek is the the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee choice. Is that right?
I'm not sure on that one.
I think Turek is the sort of is the more establishment choice.
Right. I think as a general point, yes. Whether the committee is actively supporting, I'm not sure. But I think that is usually that is broadly the lane that is taking place there.
So that's going to be an important, I think, because I do think there is a slight chance. I mean, everything could be in play by the fall. We have no idea what the situation is going to be. I mean, you got a lot of.
Everyone expects the governor's race in Iowa to be very contested. Democrats have a very strong candidate there. Who's currently a statewide official. I believe the only Democrat who's in statewide office in Iowa is running for governor, also an open race. Democrats are sort of putting their hopes in that. Easier for Democrats to win a state level race and a federal race. But, if you're contesting one of the two big statewide races, the other one is certainly not insane to think about as well.
Let's talk about Montana, because this is really interesting. John Tester came in as... I don't know, maybe 20 years ago as the anti-DLC candidate, which was the more corporatist wing, the third way wing of the Democratic Party. He won that race. I can't remember if it was 2008 or 2006. And then he sort of tacked a little bit to the right, particularly on immigration and some stuff. But he had, I don't know, about a year ago said, a Democrat can't win in Montana anymore because the brand is so bad, and he's supporting an independent, but also my understanding is he's also funding a PAC to support a Democrat. Explain that dynamic.
Well, it's very confusing there. So, there's this idea out there that in certain states, a Democrat might not win in November. So if Democrats support an independent candidate, they could win. They could
see that in Nebraska.
In Nebraska. So in Nebraska, where the primary was last month, there was a very clear primary choice between a Democrat who had all but said she was going to drop out to help the independent, and a Democrat who was an anti-abortion, Republican-affiliated pastor who was running to sort of stay in the race and split the Democratic vote in the fall. We're not seeing that in Montana in the sense that there's 5 candidates, I think, on the ballot today for the Senate nomination. It's an open race as well. We're talking about open races. It's not like, this candidate is the one who's going to stay and this candidate is going to stay out based on their statements. But outside groups have swept in and are acting like there is such a divide. So there's the Montana Free Press I linked to in my guide was reporting there's a Republican linked group that is spending to support a very, very minor candidate based on the fundraising and campaign presence under the idea that that person is more likely to stay in, and sorry, and then there's another group that is affiliated with Tester supporting someone else. It's sort of hard to, we're reading between the lines here compared to Nebraska, which makes it very confusing. I think a voter doesn't have actual statements from candidates to support any of this, other than like, wait, if this group is supporting this candidate, does that mean they're not going to drop out? Does that mean they're going to drop out?
Right.
It's like a 3D chess, 4D chess. So we don't quite know what's going to happen, but that's one to watch today.
Okay, let's move to the House. A lot of those races, the more, I guess, dramatic ones, are in California, with a couple maybe in New Jersey as well.
Right.
Tell us about those.
Yeah, I mean, there's, the race that's most viral, most on people's mind is the race to replace former Speaker Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco. It's flavors of the Democratic Party are fighting there. Within the San Francisco coalition, interestingly, we're seeing sort of the same. Not to jump too low, but San Francisco is a place where we're seeing a lot of center versus left fights today, up and down the ballot. So that's I think one of the most interesting places today to watch. But it starts with this House race, and there's a bunch of other races like. There's a special election. Not a special election yet. There's a primary to replace Eric Swalwell, who retired from the House a few weeks ago. But then one interesting thing as well in the House in California is, we all know Democrats withdrew the map in California. It was approved by voters in November in response to Texas, where Republicans withdrew the map. And there's a lot of new districts. A lot of incumbents who are not maybe super endangered still are running in places that are foreign to them. It's the top two system, so it's not super interesting today in many places because they're probably going to survive till November. They could face another Democratic incumbent. So we might see interesting intra-Democratic fight in November, but today will be a test of whether some of these Democratic incumbents who are suddenly in newer territory are going to pass or not. I'll also mention one place, I was saying there's a fear that a party could be shut out in California because of the top two system. One place we're seeing that at the House level, there have been some fretting by Democrats in particular about the 48th district, which is in San Diego. That's the district that Representative Issa, a Republican, is retiring from because it was drawn to be a Democratic district. There's a lot of Democrats running there. There's only two major Republicans. That's the kind of situation that on paper you could end up with lightning striking and two Republicans moving through just because Democrats are so divided. It's not, Democrats don't seem panicked about the situation, but that's at the House level, I think the main place to at least watch for that dynamic of whether something happens just by virtue of the top two.
That's a good segue to governor.
I just want to quickly ask about the 22nd though, just because like that we've interviewed Randy Villegas on our show before, and that's more likely to be a Republican versus a Democrat, right? Because it's a purple district, but Villegas endorsed by Bernie Sanders. That's a really important race. Right.
It's a very important district. The 22nd. The Republican incumbent running for re-election, the district has become bluer, not like, complete slam dunk for Democrats to win. That's one where there's one clear Republican, the incumbent. So, it'd be a shock if the incumbent doesn't make it through. And there's two main Democrats. Well, that's to Sam, your earlier question. That's a situation where there's a progressive candidate that Emma just mentioned, and someone who's very clearly the establishment candidate. So that's not a primary per se because everyone's on the same ballot, but that effectively going to choose which of a more centrist or more progressive primary Democrat is going to move on. And, that's a sort of district. It's blue leaning. There's a Republican incumbent, but also blue wave in California in November that the Democrats would be favored to win there.
Let's talk about the governorship, because that is certainly something that Democrats have been sweating the possibility of two Republicans winning.
Right. Well, we started the year up until March, April. There was a lot of sweating on the Democratic side about what if Republicans, just even if they just get a combined 35% of the vote, 40% of the vote, what if they both go through? A bunch of things happened since then that has made Democrats a lot less nervous. Eric Swalwell was hit by a lot of allegations, had to drop out. That was number one. A major Democrat dropped out this spring. And then Trump endorsed one of the two Republicans, which consolidated the Republican vote around one Republican, which makes it less likely both move through. So it sort of changed the dynamic, and going into, we'll see the results, right? But the bigger question today is whether two Democrats can advance over the Trump endorsed candidate, the British influencer Steve Hilton. So I actually asked on social media yesterday. I was curious how California voters were choosing who to vote for, and sort of launched a call for responses about how strategic people were being versus what they wanted. And I was surprised, but a lot of people said their primary motivation at this point is to see if they can shut out, if they can fully force Republicans out of the race, and voting strategically around the two Democratic frontrunners to try and get them both through. So that could
those
happen
Democratic
today.
frontrunners now, Steyer and Becerra.
Yes, so those are the two. In the polls, Becerra has been ahead. The thing is, there's not a huge amount of polls, and polls can be wrong, but this is really a situation where polls have driven the race rather than just showing what people think. Because Democrats have held on to their ballots. We know that. We know that Democrats in California are voting later than usual. They're watching the polls, and the polls that have shown Becerra and Steyer the top two spots have consolidated. The more people see that, the more that has made them the top two, et cetera. So, that's the strategic thinking that the top two system just forces on people. Not ideal.
It's a bizarre. It's a little bit bizarre in my estimation. To have people being that, taking their cues from the polls as opposed to the polls reflecting where people are.
Yeah.
But
it is inherent.
That's the
to
era
the
we
system.
live in.
It's inherent to the system in a situation like this. If you're a Democratic voter, you don't want to vote for someone who's going to end up at 3% if there's a chance that no Democrat makes it through. And it would be the same vice versa. But yeah, when so many people are voting based on polls, that it creates a bit of a snowball effect that is not ideal for how polling is supposed to work.
All right, let's talk about New Jersey.
Dr. Adam Hamoy was on our show last week. That primary in Central Jersey, New Jersey's 12th, feels like the best opportunity for a progressive pickup in a cycle since 2024, where there actually have been a lot of really progressive candidates in Jersey that have emerged. Mejia in my old district where I grew up, but also McIver, who's been out there, and charged by the Trump administration for standing up against ICE's abuses.
That probably, I think today a lot of California districts, either the more clearly left versus center battles will probably be more in the fall, and the governor's race doesn't really reflect such a clear ideological divide. The 12th district of New Jersey is the big one today, where the left is hoping for a win. You just Emma, you said exactly painted the picture where the left got a major special election win in a primary there with Meja's candidacy in April, April. In April. And New Jersey is not a state that has been, context is important here, and it's not a state that has been kind to progressives, in part because it has such a strong party machine, and the party bosses in New Jersey, that's something people say, the party bosses control primaries. Often true, often exaggerated. In New Jersey, it's really been ground zero historically for the type of dynamic where a party boss endorsement, a county convention endorsement goes a huge way. And those are not people who support the left-wing candidates. And that sort of started to break in 2024 with Andy Kim winning the Senate race.
And changing the ballot so that it wouldn't be the county line, which favored that machine. Yep.
And we were just talking about the top two system and the type of incentives it creates. The ballot design in New Jersey exactly was super important to how people voted and how the party bosses got sort of to influence people's choices. Super important to think about how very prosaic things like that are very important to what the results end up being. And yeah, New Jersey 12th, we're seeing kind of a left-center battle, a very crowded field. That's a district where, there is technically a November general election, but today really is going to decide who wins. Interestingly, to just jump local for a sec, there's similar battles at the local level. So some of the people we're mentioning are supporting insurgent slates of candidates in towns in New Jersey, like Bloomfield. And that's, in and of themselves, the races are not the most important, but as a test of the strength of the strength of the party establishment versus insurgent types, there's a lot to test that in New Jersey today. So that'd be interesting.
All right. We got to go, but is there one other race that we haven't mentioned that we should be keeping an eye on that fits into? I'm sure there's many,
okay. Let me go to New Mexico, because I think New Mexico is super interesting and we haven't talked about it. New Mexico is interesting because it's a state that has been controlled by Democrats for a bit. There's a lot of very conservative Democrats, and I don't just say conservative, lightly. Democrats who've been opposed to abortion rights, Democrats who've been opposed to paid sick leave, Democrats who've been opposed to very basic ballot expansion reforms over the years, and the progressive wing there has been very successful really for a while now, since 2016, 2018, every cycle in getting primary challengers to run and win against the more conservative Democrats that I was just mentioning, who have voted against abortion rights and so on. Very interesting today, there are three former state house members who were very influential, who were ousted in primaries over the past few cycles, who were very influential on abortion in those debates, and they're all trying to get their seat back in New Mexico. And those are interesting because there's been such a shift left of the state house and state senate in New Mexico, which has been very important for policymaking there. And today's primaries there are going to sort of test the balance of power between left and center in that state, which doesn't get as much attention as California, but there's a lot happening as well.
It's going to be interesting to see. This is really a test. Obviously not just today, but this is a big one for where progressives are in the Democratic Party and how durable their gains have been and will be going forward. Daniel Nichanian, we will put a link to Bolt's magazine, and I cannot encourage people, if you want to follow these primaries, following Daniel on Blue Sky, or are you still on Twitter as well?
I am still on Twitter as well.
Me too. Is a great way to do that. Daniel, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Josh Jager, bargaining committee chair for the UAW Local 2093 in Michigan, they're on strike. 1,000 auto workers. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program Josh Jager, bargaining committee chair for the UAW Local 2093, representing about 1,000 workers from American Axle, also known as the Dausch Corporation. Dausch. Yeah. And you guys went on strike yesterday. This is a story that really goes back almost 18 years. No, is it 18 years?
Yes,
Holy crap. Yeah, 18 years. I'm old. When the U.S. government bailed out GM in the wake of the financial crisis.
Correct.
Tell us, fill in the blanks for folks who don't know that story.
Well, 2008, we went on strike for 87 days. The Great Recession was just starting, and everything was stacked against us here in Three Rivers. General Motors had 90 to 100-day supply of trucks on their lot, and the owner dicked out. He wanted to get concessions out of the UAW to have cheaper labor, and it was all stacked in his favor. We won by staying open, but we lost that battle because our wages were cut in half.
Your wages were cut in half in 2008. And folks, have to remember, during that financial crisis, it looked like the entire car industry, U.S. car industry, was going to get wiped out in this country. And workers basically said, we're going to take the brunt of the hit here. And then the problem was everybody seemed to forget. And nobody ever made the workers whole. And here we are. So American Axle, you guys make the axles for these SUVs, essentially.
The heavy-duty trucks. We do the front and rear axles for GM's heavy-duty line, the 2500, 3500. We also do the light-duty Colorado Canyon that goes down to Wentzville. And we supply steering linkage components to next tier over in Saginaw, Michigan.
Okay. And so what are the primary asks that you guys are asking for?
In general, a fair contract. So when we went on strike back in 2008, our top wage at the time was $18 an hour. Our current top wage is $22 an hour. We've managed to gain back $4 an hour in 18 years. That doesn't keep up with any type of inflation, no type of increases. We have members that can't support themselves on a daily basis to make sure that they have a car, a roof over their head, and their kids have medical care that they need. We had a lady who unfortunately chose to take care of her kids and let her health insurance lapse. In that time that it had lapsed, she suffered a house fire, total loss, and she became homeless overnight. I have members that have been there since pre-08. They were roughly 30-year associates. Since then, perpetually, he takes out a loan on his 401k. They pay off credit cards that he uses to make sure that he meets his own ends meet throughout the year. Pays off that card with a 401k loan, and then every year continues to rack that debt back up. And then as that loan is paid off, takes out another one and continues that cycle. For the last 15 years, he's been doing that.
I should say that if you just go and Google what would $18 from 2008 be worth today, it'd be about $28. And so you're talking about really losing pace with just inflation by 33%. That's nuts. And my sense is that GM, obviously, the corporation that gets your axles, and American Axle, the company that makes them, they're doing much better than being 33% under what their numbers were in 2008.
I read on the labor notes that the CEO's been paid $111 million in the last decade.
That's accurate.
So what is the relationship between GM and American Axle?
It's pretty good. We were spin off from GM back in the day for drive shafts. There was originally 5 plants that were founded, and we're the last of the remaining 5 plants. From the 2008 strike, the other 4 plants, 3 of the 5 plants closed. Detroit remained open after 2008. In 2012, expiration of that contract, they were offered to mirror Three Rivers, or they were going to close down Detroit. Those members had a better contract coming out of 2008. They didn't think that Dick, the CEO, would close their plant right across from world headquarters. They decided and declined not to match our agreement, and they ultimately did close that plant and tore them down the parking lot.
I should also say that, roughly speaking, GM trucks, heavy-duty trucks, have roughly doubled in their price since that time, and you guys are not seeing that. Somebody's seeing that money.
Someone is. American Axle's made over $8 billion in profits in the last 10 years also. Our wages back in 2000...
I'm sorry, $8 billion with a B?
With a B in the last 10 years.
It's just theft.
Holy
it's just theft.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. We want the company to make their money so that we can continue to make ours. But we want a fair share of that pie. And
you guys have been in, you guys have been in negotiations for a while on this, and management has just been what has their attitude been?
My personal opinion, lackluster. We've made our demands very clear since day one. No concessions, fair wages, and their last proposal was $25.75 an hour.
That still isn't even at where you were in 2008.
No. So with the basic math of the golden rule, for 3% a year, the $18 over the last 18 years and 3% increases, we should be at $30.64 a year or an hour right now. And our top wage is 22. We're trying to get back to where we should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're going to get backfilled for that, right? Like nobody's going to come in and say, hey, in 2009, you should have been getting $19 an hour. And in 2020, in 2012, you should have been getting $22 an hour. You're not getting that money back. So even if you're made to where you should be today, you'll still have 15 years of missing those increases.
Yes, that $29 an hour we were making back in 2008 is $44 an hour today.
That's crazy.
Nowhere near where we should be, but again, there's other asks out there besides wages. We want to maintain our healthcare costs. We want to improve working conditions, have a better life-work balance. All those come at another financial cost that they, tally into your overall labor rate. So if we're trying to get back to $30 an hour, we call it 30 by 30. So $30 an hour by 2030. It's not unreasonable. We can have a life-work balance, maintain our benefits at current levels, and no more out-of-pocket costs. How is that being unreasonable?
What can folks do to support this? I mean, I would imagine they don't have the same sort of inventory of SUVs these days as they did during 2008, or do they?
No, they do not. If you drive around, at least locally here, around for Michigan, you go to any car lot, they might have 6 or 7 trucks sitting on a lot, and those are usually already sold units. American Axle started building a bank of axles January 5th. They had roughly a 2-week bank of inventory ahead of GM production schedules, and we walked out Sunday night or Monday morning.
So they knew they were trying to prepare for this. So they got 2 weeks before they start to having to get serious about this.
They have managers in there right now crossing the picket lines. They're in there trying to do everything they can to bolster that number and get some more axles out the door. But it's only a matter of time before GM outpaces that, and they're going to get pinched.
So I imagine management's looking at your strike fund and going, this is just a war. Like, we'll see who can last longer.
Well, unfortunately, there was some local leadership that thought our local funded the strike. And they're like, you guys don't have the money to really go on strike. Like, well, how do you figure you don't? Well, your local doesn't have that kind of money. Our local doesn't pay for the strike fund. That comes out international. And that had, last I knew, over $800 million in that account. So we can outlast 3 weeks. We can outlast 4 weeks. And we will stay out as long as necessary to get that fair contract that our members are demanding and are long overdue.
What can our viewers and listeners do to help support you guys?
Keep praying for us on the picket line to make sure that we maintain safe. We've had a few instances already where contractors that were hired by the company are blowing through the picket lines. They're not giving us time to get out of the way. I've watched personally one young man get hit by a van 3 times.
Oh, jeez.
Pushed him out of the way. Another truck clipped a young person. I personally was hit by a car last night, trying to aid in showing the picketers what to do as their hired security is trying to get a car out. They're pushing me out of the way, directed the car forward. It hit me. I think we have a clear understanding now of how we need to conduct business on both sides of that line, because nobody needs to get hurt or injured on a picket line.
Where is the pickets taking place? If folks who are listening in the neighborhood want to stop by, maybe bring some pizzas, and I imagine having folks from the community standing there makes it a little more difficult for them to try and run you over.
Well, it's the community support is unbelievable. We're out there holding that line, and all the cars that are driving by and honking and throwing a fist out saying, "Good job, we support you." You can't even put measure to it. And now it's growing across the state. We have senators that have come down already, stood on the picket line with us. I talked to another one this morning. They're going to try to get down here on their availability and stand on the line.
These are local state senators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, all local state senators. But the support growing from our community to the state, and now we're reaching out across the country. This labor movement started 3 years ago with the Big Three and Sean Fain's campaign to get those guys back to what they had lost. Because they were behind too from 2008. The old mentality was live to fight another day.
Right.
When do you stop living to fight another day? When's that day? That day's today. That first day happened 3 years ago with that stand-up strike with the Big Three. And now 3 years later, our day is now with American Axle.
Well, Josh Jager, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it. And I encourage people, where can folks get information as to where the picket lines are?
So we are located in Three Rivers, Michigan. Our hall is at 15802 Hoffman Road in Three Rivers, Michigan, 49093.
And is there a website where people can also get information?
We have a local website, local UAW 2093.org, .net, .com. They all go to the same direction.
All right. We will link to that as well as post that address. Josh, good luck. And thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, folks. From going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program. Couple of programming notes. I'm anticipating a call from John from San Antonio.
Need our election expert today.
And then a lot of people have been on us about the Dave Rubin Jubilee. We talked about it yesterday. Look, I don't like this whole thing where we pick on Dave Rubin. I don't. You
don't like it?
I don't.
I hate the
I don't like
mudsligging
it
too.
I don't like it.
You
Right.
love it?
I don't like it. No. But I also, there's a time where the audience just demands that you do it. And so.
You're so captured by your audience.
So audience captured.
I mean, honestly,
We're afraid of our audience.
This is where we veer into territory where we're maxing out on the left stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just responding to the audience.
So
377,000 views.
What we've done is, look, we can sit here and say, Dave Rubin should have said this, or Dave Rubin should have said that, or he's an idiot because he said this, or he's an idiot because he said that, or he's really stupid because he said this, and he's really dumb because he said that, and he really doesn't know anything because he said this. We could do that, and we will. But we also, expertise is important. So coming up in the fun half, we have an actual member of the Surrounded.
His name is Mason.
Mason. And he exposed Dave Rubin as being an idiot. Now, I'm not going to say like Mason's, the only one who did that. There were 20 people there. And to the extent that all 20 got to talk, they all made Dave Rubin look like an idiot.
Yeah, every single one.
But Mason's going to join us and walk us through his exchange with Dave Rubin and also answer the question. Was Dave questioned about me during this?
The real issue.
The real issue. I want to make this all about me. I want to make sure that we forefront Dave being an idiot, and I don't want to center myself.
Let's not distract from it.
But I think
we could have both.
But
center it a little bit.
We can center it a little bit.
Every cake has frosting.
It's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member, join the MajorityReport.com. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Comedian Freddie G talking about New York politics, Delaney Hall, the Israel parade. Dave Griscom and I talk about Norm Finkelstein, who upset a bunch of people like Peter Dow for saying that you shouldn't necessarily rely on people like Candace Owens or.
Wait, what? Peter Dow is upset about that?
Peter Dow thinks, Norm is selling out people by being too pure, by not including Tucker Carlson.
Oh,
and
well, we
Candace
have that
Owens.
clip in the sound sheet, right?
Yeah, we play that in Left Reckoning after coming up at 2:45 right after the show today.
Why should we trust what Peter Dow was one of the worst people
Peter
in the
Dow
Clinton era,
is-
and then now he's just like doing a grift on the other side.
Zealotry
of
of the convert.
He's. I don't know that he's doing a grift, but
Or whatever.
He's on a journey. It's just that I wouldn't.
But how can you trust someone whose politics swing that wildly to the other
He was
side?
really upset.
I'm not suggesting you trust him. I'm just
Yeah.
saying he's on a journey, and a lot of times that journey is to the bottom of the ocean or like the center of the earth, and it may be a little bit hot.
To be fair, Glenn Greenwald also had the same position that Norm is being too pure in his politics. And I'll just say it's very interesting. A lot of the people that
Glenn Greenwald was like a huge Tucker. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, also a lot of people that seem to be mad at Norm were also people who were proposing Trump as an anti-war president, like within this calendar year. So they're basically covering their ass and are embarrassed that everyone else saw what Trump would be before they did.
Glenn said in the.
We gotta go,
okay,
we gotta
I'm
go.
sorry.
All right, we'll be right back. Fun half.